I guess she is having difficulty. There's technical difficulty. Hold, please.
Yeah, I'm gonna just start over for the recording because I don't know if it recorded that last one or not. So sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I've never seen Zoom do that before, but anyway, welcome to our Zoom focus. Tonight we're going to talk about the every 4 add 1 more mantra that Pampered Chef has done. And basically it means every 4 parties you do, you add a team member. And so we're going to literally break it down as to what that means for clients. So what we're going to do is I'm going to try this one more time. I hope it works okay. I'm going to share my screen and show you guys the photo. There we go. Okay. So this basically breaks down the every 4 add 1 more mantra that Pampered Chef has. So if you'll look on this, on the right, that breaks it down per show. So we're using this as a 4 show a week example, and you can do the 4 shows easily in a week with block parties, or you can run individual shows for the month, and you might have 4 to 6 shows that you do for the month. So it doesn't matter how the 4 shows look, but this kind of breaks down that model. So on the right-hand side, it breaks down who you're looking for in your parties. So first is our host, and we ask them 5 times, and I'll go over that in a second. 2, 3, and 4 are all rock star guests. So typically we would say a rock star party guest is who we would send the rock star party guest message to about booking a party. Well, when you're focused on sharing the love of the business with others, you're going to pick 3 of your rock stars to actually share the business with first. We'll talk about that in a second more too. Then your 5th and 6th person is anybody that maybe made a comment or asked a question in any of our recruiting posts. And so I'm going to go over each of these in more detail. So after you do the 6 people per show, you times that 6 by, on the left-hand side, per party. So party number 1, you have 6 people, 2, 6 people, and so on until it totals 24 people that you've talked to about the business for the 4 shows. Out of those 24 people, 12 may answer, and you might have conversations back and forth with them. And out of those 12 back and forth conversations, 1 more than likely will sign. So that's kind of the breakdown. But let's focus on the right-hand side and talking about, each one of these people that we're actually talking about the business with. So first of all, let's talk about our hosts. I always think hosts are the best leads. So with your host and asking them 5 times, I'm going to go through the process that we have on the team of when you ask your hosts. So when you first book a show with them, I would always throw out the idea that they can turn that show into what we call a launch show. It's basically doing their first party for them, and it's where we run the shows for them for their first party. So when I ask a host if they'd like to turn it into a launch show, some of my hosts are like, oh, I'm not sure yet. I'm still thinking about the business. Some people know, no, that's okay. I'm just interested in hosting. So that's a question that I ask before their show gets started. Now, the second time that I mention the business is usually when I send them an email about their show. It goes over tips and, tips for virtual parties. I have attachments for the host special and the guest special. I always include the recruiting special if there is one that month. And so in that email, there's a special line that says, this might be the furthest thing from your mind, but you could use a $25 or $50 kit credit to get started as a consultant. So it's basically just mentioning one of the benefits of the business to them in their email when they get started. Again, I'm not asking them if they want to get started yet, but I'm just mentioning it. In the host coaching system, we mention it 2 more times. It's on day 3 and day 6. On day 3, the message sounds something like, and again, this is in the host coaching system, so you don't need to worry about writing this down or anything. It's already there for you to use. In day 3, it says something like, hey, Susie, here's your thought for today. I want you to watch how little I need to do with our parties. I use a posting service, so my posts post automatically, and then I check in with the show once or twice a day to answer questions and interact with guests. You could do this too, and it's super easy and flexible. I'm here if you have any questions, that kind of a message. Now, again, I'm not asking them if they're interested yet. I'm just throwing it out there to think about. On day 6 is where I actually ask the question. So this one, I bring up the business again, and I say the message says something like, hey, just wanted to touch base about the business opportunity. You've been doing such a great job this week. Your results are, blah, 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 like you can share some of their results or something that they've been doing that's good. And then I'll say, most of our consultants earn anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month. Could your family use some extra money? So I actually ask them the question if they could use the money at that point. Now, again, some of my hosts answer, some of them don't. Some of them reply back that they're thinking about it, and some don't answer at all. So that's very typical. The 5th time that I ask is I usually do a quick 5-minute phone call before I close their show, going over shipping information, where guests are shipping. I go over the host's shipping address, that kind of thing. So after I'm done with that, I just ask one more time, and I'm like, hey, Susie, I just wanted to touch base one more time before we turn in the show and double check to see if you wanted to use that $25 or $50 kit credit towards your starter kit to give the business a try. Now, what's interesting about this is those are the 5 times that I ask. So I, again, mentioning the business or asking your host 5 different times during the show. What's interesting is I have people talk to me about the business in all 5 aspects of the show. Sometimes I have my host reply to the email. Sometimes she says before the show starts, yeah, let's do it. Let's do this. I want to turn it into a launch show. Sometimes they decide, after I message them, could your family use some extra money? And they're like, yeah, actually we could. And then we start the conversation there. What's really interesting is I've had 2 consultants that have actually not mentioned it at all until I mention it in person over the phone. So one of them, it was just a month ago, and we were getting ready to close our show. And I, mentioned it to her. I'm like, hey, Susie, did you want to use a $25 or $50 kit credit? And she was like, actually, I don't want to use the kit credit, but I am thinking of getting started as a consultant. And I was like, well, great. I'm like, do you still have questions? Or are you ready to give it a try? And she's like, I still have some questions. I'm still thinking about it. So I added her to the opportunity group that we had the next Wednesday. And she viewed the video and then asked some questions there, and then said that she was going to think about it over the weekend. Well, I followed up on Monday, and then she ended up signing. What's interesting to me though, is I don't think she would have ever messaged me that she was thinking about it. When she brought it up was when I talked to her about it in person, or not in person, but over the phone, like in person. And that's when she mentioned it to me. So I'm just saying it's a good idea to mention it multiple times to your host. So that goes over number 1. So number 2, 3, and 4 are Rockstar Party guests. These are anyone that is active, participating a ton, playing all the games. You know who those people are. If your group has over 50 people, you can actually look at the group insights, and it gives you the top 10 guests that comment and participate in the show. Those are all people that I would reach out to about the business first. And you might be thinking, well, what if they're more interested in hosting? Then they'll tell you. If you reach out about the business first and they're not interested, they'll say, oh, I'm not interested in being a consultant, but thanks for asking. And then I immediately follow up with, well, what about, being the next friend that hosts and doing a fun virtual party? And a lot of times they'll say, yeah, actually, I'm really interested in that. That sounds really fun. And so they'll book a show anyway. So I always go for the business question first, because I know if they're not interested in the business, I could maybe get them interested in hosting and earning some products for free. So that's kind of the message that I use for the Rockstar Party guest. Finally, the curious Q&A. So we strategically have in our outlines some different posts that generate interest about the business. And some of them may not be, some of them are really obvious, like the lightning round and the apron post. And then some of them might not be as obvious. So for instance, in my intro, again, this is an example that you can use in the outline for the team through ScentShare. In my intro, it actually has a little bit of benefits of what Pampered Chef has done for our family. And then I asked them, a question like, what's one of your dreams and goals? What would you do, with an extra $500 a month? What's something on your bucket list that you've always wanted to do? Something like that. I can't remember exactly what it says, but it's some kind of question like that. And sometimes I get people that just comment, oh my gosh, your family's so cute or whatever. And then other times I get people that actually share something that they'd like to do in their life. And again, those are people that I reach out to about the business. If they want to earn a family vacation to Disney World, I talk to them about how they could save for that and earn money for that each month. If they mention that they'd love to put a pool in the backyard, again, I talk to them about how they could save for that each month by doing virtual shows with Pampered Chef. So that would be one that's maybe not quite as obvious, but is still in there strategically to talk about the business. And then you have some posts that sometimes your host will do where you will also get leads about the business. One of the cute ones that we have in our host group is what's on your bucket list. And that post is great because, again, people will share trips or things that they want to do, that's on their bucket list. And again, you can turn that into a business opportunity, by contacting the guest. So when I post the replay, I'll post some of my messages that I use for follow-up for you guys to see and do all about the business opportunity. But that's usually what I do is I follow up with those 6 guests per show. And usually, our team's rate of signing people is actually a little higher. So you may not even sign every 4, add 1 more. It may be every 4, add 2 more. So just keep that in mind, is especially when you're working with, your upline that's a great recruiter, you actually might sign more people than that. So, and mainly I'm messaging them and inviting them to the opportunity events that we have every Wednesday night. So that kind of breaks down the every 4, add 1 more. And when you do that, how you can share the love and share the love of the business with a team member that month. Now, I did have a consultant reach out to me, and we were going to talk about this tonight too, reach out to me and say, sometimes when I do the lightning round game on my shows, I have like crickets, like no one asks a question. And that used to happen to me every once in a while too, until the beginning of the year when I started offering an extra prize that they got for asking 10 questions. So you'll notice in the lightning round, I actually have an additional thing now where it says, when you ask 10 questions, I'll give away an extra prize in the show. And when I give away the extra prize, it's something small, like a $5 item. And I usually draw from the people that ask the questions. And so it's something that I added this year. And I can honestly say every single block party I've done, except for one, has had over 10 questions asked. So it's been very successful with getting some great results from the lightning round and great results from questions. And you can either answer the questions through messaging, like just on the feed, or you can go live and answer the questions live. And that's what I've been doing this year, and it's been really fun. But you don't have to go live. You can always just answer them through a message. I will say this though, when people ask a question, you don't want to reply to their question. What I do is I go to the bottom, write a new comment, tag them in the comment, and answer their question. And it's very strategic why I do that. When you reply to a question, it doesn't show up for everyone else. They actually have to hit view, the comment to see it. And with the business, I want everyone to see the answers. So I always make a new comment, tag the person that asked the question, and then post the answer there. So if you're going to post answers, that's a little tip that might help you further, help people further see the benefits and stuff of the business. With the apron post, that will let guests pick which option that they would like to do. Virtual, Facebook, part-time, or full-time, I think are the 4 apron choices. And when someone picks a choice, again, I make a new comment, tag them in it, and be like, oh, Susie, virtual or Facebook is my favorite option because that's one of the most flexible, great choice. Well, then I mark on their little block party tracker, Facebook consultant, or asked a question about the business, and then that's who I know to follow up with at the end of the show. So I hope that helps a little bit more on that. Okay, I am going to go ahead and take our screen share off, and we're at about the 20-minute mark, which is what I like to keep this training short and sweet. And I'd love to open it up for any questions that anyone has about sharing the business opportunity with others, or about anything we went over tonight, whether it's about the every 4, add 1 more, if it's about, messages you send to your hosts or guests, or if it's about, any of the sharing the business games that we have in our outlines that we use. And if you don't have one of these that you're using in your outlines, I would encourage you to do so. In the outline that I've designed for the team, I have at least a booking and a recruiting comment each day. And then I also have the booking and recruiting posts as well. So they're all very strategic to make sure we're creating that interest for bookings and recruits. Okay, so I'm going to look at the chat for questions, but if anyone has any questions, you can take yourself off mute and add them too.
I would say, Kelly, I learned the most valuable lesson is just you saying to start a new message, tag them, and the response, because that's not what I do. I respond to the message to them.
which is what I used to do too. And I can't remember where I heard that tip, but it was in one of the trainings when someone pointed it out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even notice that, until they pointed it out. And once they pointed it out, that's how I make sure to answer. Again, if it's different things in the show, some of them might not be a big deal. You know what I mean? Like when they're like, oh my gosh, I want that air fryer. Then it's not a big deal to reply back and say, isn't it amazing? What would you cook first? Or something like that. But when it's something that I want everyone to see, like bookings or business questions, that's when I start the new comment and tag them in it versus replying. So yeah, great. I'm glad every time you can teach David something, it's a win for me. Okay. Rachel says apron gets crickets too. The apron post, I would say, is not nearly as commented on as my lightning round. Again, you can always add something like an extra prize or something like that if you want to get people, commenting on that. But I pretty much feel like if I get at least 10 questions asked on the lightning round, that's deemed successful for me. So, the apron post, I would say, is hit or miss. Sometimes I have 1 or 2 comments and sometimes I don't have any. Then that's okay.
And Kelly, I have an apron post that has like 4 aprons, but I've seen it with 6 aprons. The ones with just 4 tend to get more response.
I agree.
You give them too many choices.
Yeah. So we used to have an apron post that had 6, either 5 or 6. There was a lot on there. And I did the apron post in Canva and I narrowed it down to 4. And I think the aprons are easier to see, when you're looking on your phone. And then that did get more responses. I agree, David. I noticed I got more responses when I switched to that as well. So another option, one of my friends does this. I haven't actually done this yet. It's something that I still aim to do this year. But she goes live 3 times in her show. The first time is on day 1, and she actually introduces herself that day and tells people to watch what she does during the show, that she uses a posting service and stuff like that. It's just a short, sweet intro, maybe 2 minutes. And then she'll go live to answer questions about the lightning round. And then she'll also go live at the end to announce prizes. And I've been doing that one too. So I've been going live after the lightning round and to announce prizes. And this is another great response to talk about the business. When I go live to announce the prize winners, I always say, hey, you guys, I'm so excited to announce the prize winners from today's show, but I'm also going to play the what if game real quick. And the what if game is basically you say, what if you were one of the hosts from this week's shows? What would you get? And then I'll go through my average, what your average host gets. The other one is I say, what if you were the consultant? How much money would you have made from this week's shows? And then I go through what I would make. And you can do this for an individual show, or you can do this for a block party, whatever works for you. You could even base it on what if you were the consultant the last month and what would you make. So I do that strategically to talk about hosting in the business. And then after that, I announce the prize winners, because I know that's what everyone's waiting for. So I do that after I talk about the business or the host benefits. So the what if game has been really effective too. And again, it's just a nice option to create that interest on the business. So if you're brave enough to go live, it's literally just like talking like it is on the Zoom, and stuff. So it's not like demoing products or anything like that if you're still too nervous to do that. But it's worked really well for upping my recruiting. I would say this year, since I started doing that in January, my recruiting has increased for sure. So just a couple of ideas that you can try in your shows.
I'm going to have to do that.
Oh yeah, isn't that?
I'm comfortable going live, and even if I get 2 questions on the lightning round, I'll still go live, just because you can talk about everything instead of this long old message. So
no, it's fun. It's definitely fun. And like I said, in the when I go live, you can always type a little blurb, when you go live, and I always put emojis in there and stuff, and I'll say answers, to this questions, extra prize earned, or something like that. You know what I mean? So that they watch the video and stuff like that. So it is a great idea, whether there's 2 questions or 10 that get asked, to go live and answer them. It's kind of fun. Anybody else have any questions about anything we went over tonight? If there's no recruiting questions, we can always open it up to any business questions in general too.
I have a question.
Yeah, Rach, go ahead.
So I don't know if it's just the kind of people that I attract to my parties or who volunteers the host.
Yeah.
But it's usually people who are super shy, I'm starting to notice.
Okay.
But I reached out to them and they were like, sure, I'll do it. but
Okay.
then they're not super communicative or things like that.
Yeah.
And so I get in this rut where I'm like, they're already super shy, and I was lucky to get them as a host.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't want to push for the consultant, because honestly, I can't see them as being a consultant either, because they weren't super responsive with my host coaching.
Yeah.
And part of me feels like that's a bad attitude, but the other part of me is like, maybe it's good that I'm not pushing them too far in their comfort zone. What is your take on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So anytime you're either mentioning one of the two benefits, either about hosting or the business, the way that I think about it, and I use this analogy all the time when I train, is when you have like a plate of cookies or a dessert. I'm a big cookie fan, so that's why I use a plate of chocolate chip cookies right out of the oven. But when you have a plate of cookies, you would never, and you had a party at your house, you would never consider only offering the cookies to half your guests, right? Like it literally kind of makes me laugh. Like I would never go around to every other person and ask if they want a cookie and skip over people, right? I always want to let them decide if they're interested or not. And so I literally, and this is very natural, when we're reaching out for bookings, when we're reaching out about the business, it's very natural for us to prejudge. I do it still, literally still. Like I can tell you a couple of examples from this last month where I still prejudge, but I talk myself through it. So like if I, hesitate sending out the Rockstar Party Guest message to ask for a booking to someone, I'm like, no, I'm going to let them decide. I'm not going to decide for them whether or not they want to do a show. And I always say on the team, we never want to be pushy, and we never want to, push people to do something they want to do. But when you ask one time, that's not being pushy. Being pushy is when they tell you they're not interested and you push further. So if they say, I'm not interested in the business, or I'm not interested in booking, and you push further, oh, come on, you really should. It's so easy. It only takes 15 minutes a day. That's different than if you have someone that says, oh, I want to think about it, or now's not a good time, maybe later. You know what I mean? Like there's a big difference between following up with someone who says they're not interested and pushing further, rather than someone who says they want to think about it, or now's not a good time. That's totally different. So with the business or with bookings, I ask everyone at least once. And if they say that they're not interested, then I respect the no and I move on to the next person. And when you respect the no, you're never going to be pushy. Offering once is not being pushy. It's doing our job. Like we want to make sure that we catch everyone that, is thinking about the business, bookings, or maybe that might want to place an order. That's why we have our host do the Fab Four message, right? She's reminding everyone to order to see if they want to. Trust me when I say this, people forget, and it's always nice to be asked. Even when I was at my very first Pampered Chef show, I don't know that I ever would have gone up to the consultant and say, hey, I'm really thinking of doing a show. I was thinking about it, but because she asked me when I was checking out, then we talked about it, and then I ended up booking one. But I don't know if I would have volunteered the information first. You know what I mean? Same with my host. She never said she was thinking about joining the business until I asked her over the phone. No response to the messages, no response to the email. You know what I mean? Like no response at all. Like it wasn't, no, I'm not thinking about it. It was like no response. Like I sent the next message the next day. You know what I mean? So you never know who's thinking about it. And, I always have a favorite phrase that, there's always a recruit at the show, but is there a recruiter? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of people thinking about it, but a lot of times they're waiting for you to ask them first. And so that's my rule of thumb is that every 4 add one more graphic is great to kind of pinpoint the people that you want to maybe ask originally. And then, there's going to be every once in a while, there'll be someone that reaches out to you, you know what I mean, that asks a question. But usually all my recruiting conversations are started from me reaching out first, you know what I mean? And then it almost gives them permission to like, oh yeah, I am thinking about it. I was wondering about this, you know what I mean? But they never would have volunteered that information to me first if I hadn't asked them. It's always kind of interesting to me. And the same thing with hosting, you know what I mean? Like a lot of times every once in a while I'll have someone volunteer to host, but usually I get most of my shows booked from reaching out first. Does that kind of help, Rach? Okay, good. Thumbs up. Awesome. Anybody else have any other questions? Well, awesome. We're right on the 30-minute mark. So I'm going to go ahead and end. If you guys do have any other questions.
Wait, I had one more thing to share.
David has one more thing to share. We always
Okay.
from King Midas.
Rachel, I always do. Rachel, I was going to say, a lot of times, a lot of people use Facebook just to see how people are doing. They like things. They don't really actually know how to interact that much. especially on an older generation. So a lot of times I'll look at their Facebook page and see how often they're posting something. If they post like once a month, that's kind of a good indicator. And even though that might be, well, let's have you get a co-host who can help you, because you can see that they're not communicating that much on their own page. So
That's a great.
I had that at the very beginning, someone say, I'm not really that communicative on Facebook. I thought, oh, great. Then why did you do a show?
Right.
Because in person, they really are. So
Yeah.
I was very surprised. But like I said, a lot of times people are just doing it to keep in contact or not see what their friends and family are doing.
So
and they don't really know how to utilize it.
With the person that wasn't that active on Facebook, is that what you did? You added a co-host, and did it help their show do better?
No, it was actually the show had already started.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, that's a great tip though. And Rachel, you're definitely going to have people online that are more shy, but I've literally had people tell me that's why they signed up to do virtual parties, is they needed a way to earn money. They needed something flexible to do out of their house. They're shy, so virtual parties appealed to them. And a lot of times they'll ask me, do you have to go live? Because I go live in my shows, and I'm like, oh no, I just started going live this year. Like I never went live in my virtual parties before this year. I would on my Facebook profile, but not in my shows, and stuff like that. And Sarah's the exact opposite. She goes live all the time, but that's great. Like you can run your business however you want. It's not required that you go live or not. But I've had a lot of people reach out to me that said they started with Pampered Chef with virtual shows specifically because they were shy. You know what I mean? Whereas if they just had the in-person show option, they never would have given the business a try. So it does appeal to a lot of people that are shy, with the virtual show aspect. And if they want, they can just do posts and videos, like from Pampered Chef home office. They don't have to go live at all. So awesome. A great tip, David, for sure. Anybody else, if you guys think of any other questions, of course, I'll post the replay in the team page tonight, and then you guys can ask any additional questions there, or you can always reach out to me or your upline leaders. Basically, anyone that's promoted to director has perfected sharing the business with others. So they're great to reach out to as well as myself. So awesome. So I hope you guys have a great rest of the night. Let me know if you have any questions, and then we'll post the replay tonight if anybody wants to re-listen again. I'll post the graphic too in there too if you want to save it to your phone, because it's just nice to reference. So bye. Gina's waving bye. Bye, everybody.